All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Tes and Maseches Eruvin. We left off at the bottom of Chesed Beis. Boy Minei Rami Bar Chama Mirav Chizda. So Rami Bar Chama asked a question from Rav Chizda. Say that Shaila. Not shtei yisedos b'shtei kaislei mavui mibachutz v'heniach chayra gabeyan. So, like this picture over here, you have a mavui. Right, you have a mavui, and outside the mavui, you basically on the outside walls of the Shus Harabim, you have basically like two, stick or brackets or something sticking out, and then you put the board up on the wall, right? So as you have it hanging on these pegs, and these pegs are basically sticking out in the Shus Harabim. So basically, the Korah itself is not within the walls of the mavui; it's actually right on the outside of the mavui, by the Rishus Harabim. So you have these pegs that stick out of the walls of the Mavi Mivachutz, and you put the beam on it. What is the halacha there? Mahu. So Omar Le Ledivrei Hamatir Aser, Ledivrei Oiser Mutter. So we had a machlokes yesterday. We've touched on a couple times whether one is allowed to go ahead and carry underneath the Korah. So according to the one who says you're allowed to go ahead, Ledivrei Matir, you're allowed to go ahead and carry within the Korah. So it's Aser, because that's really has to be part of the Mavui where the Korah is, and therefore since the Korah is in the Shus Harabim, therefore it's no good. And the Ledivrei Ois, and the one who says no, you can't carry in the Shus Harabim because you can only carry within the Korah. So he would say Mutter. He would say then it's okay to have the Mavui sticking on the outside on the Shus Harabim because you're not allowed to carry it under it anyways, and therefore everything within the Korah is really held within the Mavui. And Rav Amar the Divra Oiser Nami Aser, according to the opinion who says you're not allowed to carry in the Mavui, still it's not good. You can't have the Korah. It has to be part of the Mavui. It can't be in the Shus Harabim. Nami Aser being a Korah Gabi Mavui Veleka, because you need a Korah, a beam on the Mavui, and you don't have it here. So Eisve Rav Ada Bar Masna, the Rava, so Rav Ada Bar Masna has question the Rava Haisa Korah. So if you have a beam, which was now doesn't define these terms yet, Meshucha Utluya. If you have it, Meshucha Otaluya. It's Meshucha is basically sort of like right. Rashi says, right, Mashma Rechuka Himin Aksalim. Sounds like it's far from the walls, right? Otaluya, or hanging, right? So now. So there's a question over here. So I guess the Havamina is, you see this picture over here, when you see the mavui, the board, the Korah is not, it's suspended. It's not basically, attached to the walls of the mavui, but rather it's basically hanging on some sort of board in the middle and suspended, and it's not touching the walls of the mavui. So pachas megimel ein tzarich lavi korah acheres. If it's less than 3 tefachim from the wall of the mavui, you don't need to bring another korah. However, if it's gimel, if it's 3 or more, then tzarich lavi korah acheres. You have to go ahead and bring another one. Rav Shimon says we're going to soon see this machlokes. We're going to mention this machlokes a couple times. Omer pachas midalad ein tzarich lavi korah acheres. And Dalet Tzarich Lavi Korah Acheres. But he says, no, it's not 3 tefachim. It's actually the shear is 4 tefachim, right? If it's less than 4 tefachim, then you don't need another beam. But if it's more than 4 tefachim, then you do not need. So my lav meshucha mibachutz tluya mivfnim. Now, what does it mean? Meshucha and tluya is not meshucha mibachutz. Is meshucha not the exact case we're talking about? Basically, when you have two pieces of wood sticking out, and then you put the Korah on on those pieces of wood sticking out of the mavui, which are outside of the mavui, and teluya means like the case that I showed the picture of on the inside. In other words, basically, if it's basically suspended on some sort of board or something in the middle, and it doesn't connect to the mavui, and we see over here that in this case, that it would be, right, you say if it was Meshucha or Tluya, right, so it seems to be, if it was on the outside, it would seem to be okay. So the Gemara says, "Lo, no, none of them are talking about the situation. Completely different case. The situation over there is really referring to a board, not on the board on the outside, which is in the Shus Harabim, hanging on 2 pegs, rather both on the inside. And meshucha miruchachas tluya mishtei ruchas. So what does it mean? Meshucha means that one end is not touching the mavui, and tluya means neither end of the beam is touching the sides of the mavui, and that's called from mishtei ruchas. And now what's a chiddush there? So why do you need 2 cases? You said miruchachas. Maybe only from one side. You'd say lavud. Let's say one side is 2 tefachim away. Therefore, you say lavud on one side. But maybe if each side was 2 tefachim away from the each, from the edge, from the mavui walls, maybe it would be no good. Kamash Malon, as long as each side is within 3, or Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel to be 4, then it would be considered to be a good korah. And Rav Ashi Amar Meshucha v'hitluya. No, it's actually both. It's a combination. Meshucha, right? In other words, it's moved away and it's hanging. What does it mean? V'hechidam. It could go in shenatz shtei yisedos akumos al shtei kais le'mavui. In other words, you have 2 brackets, right? You have 2 brackets basically like this, and then you put, on top the beam on top, but I can't really balance it, right? But you have it on top. The 2 brackets, like as in this picture right here, right? So this picture over here, you see the little brackets over there, the L-shaped brackets. So you see it's on top. So basically, it's not only is extended up, it's also in, right? It needs assistance both ways, right? It's not low enough and it's not wide enough, right? And so therefore, you're using these brackets to assist with both. And so we say, "Could go and stay." You say those akumos al stay kaisem avi shemi gavoy and gimel ve'ed bekomas saying gimel, right? Then now is the height of those is not 3 tefachim, and the bend in them, right, doesn't go 3 tefachim. And so Malachim just said, "Oh, lavud amrinan, oh, chavat amrinan." Do you say either lavud, in other words, that you say sideways has to be 3 tefachim left, or you say chavat amrinan, that it goes up and down less than 3 tefachim? However, love of a but you can't say both. Kamash Malon, we can say both, and therefore, as long as each way is within 3 of the wall, within 3 of the height of the top of the mavui, the top of the mavui walls, and within 3 of the side of the mavui walls, it would be okay. Fine. So Tana, Rav Zaka Kamid Rav Yochanan, Bein Lechayim V'Tachas HaKoira Nida and Kekarmlis. Says Rav Zaka before Rav Yochanan. He says. Now, we discussed, one of the ways to basically put out your entrance to make it that you can carry in the mavui is either to put a beam that we've talked about, or a lechi, right, which is like a side post. Put a side post there vertically in the ground. So, and let's say you put 2, 1 on each side. Now, it says over here, you're allowed, so in between the lechi and underneath the beam is like a carmelis, is like an area you are not allowed to carry in. So Amar Le, Puktan Lebra, go teach that outside. Don't teach that in here, right? That's basically, he's saying that's incorrect. So Rabbi Yochanan argues. Rabbi Yochanan seems to say it's mutter. Now, there's 2 halachas there. There's between the lechis and there's underneath the beam. It's 2 separate halachas. So Amar Rabbi Mistavrim Milsa Rabbi Yochanan Takas HaKaira. It sounds like I think he wants to say that Rabbi Yochanan only argues underneath the beam. He says no, underneath the beam is mutter. But I would agree with you, between the lechis is still usher to carry. Aval bein lachayim usher, but still between the 2 lechis will be usher to carry. And the Rav Omar bein lachayim nami mutter. He says no, not only underneath the beam, but even between the 2 lechis is also permissible to go ahead and carry in between. So Amar Rav, so says Rav Menami Nallah. How do we know that even between the lechis, Rabbi Yochanan would say it's mutter to go ahead and carry? So the Chiyas Rav Dimi Rabbi Yochanan, there was Rav Dimi once quoted named Rabbi Yochanan, Malkam Shein Bo Dalet Al Dalet. If you have an area which is not 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, right? So mutter lebnei rishus harabim ulevnei rishus hayachid kasif alav, right? You have a small area right next to, let's say, rishus harabim, in between rishus harabim and rishus hayachid. So since it's less than 4 by 4, it's not as 4 by 4 tefachim. It's not its own domain. So therefore, it's mutter for someone, if he's in the Rishus Harabim, to go ahead and basically unload his package there, and then pick up later. You want the rest for a minute, or someone's in Rishus Yachid wants to put it there. Also, he was holding it, and he needs to readjust it or something. He's allowed to do it. However, as opposed to you just don't you transfer it. Now, as a person from the Rishus Harabim shouldn't put it on this little area, and then someone from the Rishus Yachid will take it from there, right? Because then it's ultimately it's going from the Rishus Harabim to the Rishus Yachid. But just to go ahead and unload on this area and take it back, it would be okay as long if it's less than 4 by 4. So you see, an area which is less than 4 by 4 is not significant, and therefore between the lechis, because the lechi has to be less than the 4 tefachim itself. So since the area between the lechi can't be too wide. So the post can't be too wide. So therefore, it's less than 4 tefachim. So therefore, we see it's not significant, and one is allowed to go ahead and carry, just like over there. You can basically go ahead and carry inside. And Abaye said, no, Hasan begavo gimel. Over there, it's different. The reason why over there it's its own space, and therefore you can go ahead and carry. It's not part of the others, is because it's elevated at least 3 tefachim off the ground. It's a different, unique area. As opposed to here, it's a continuation, and therefore one might go ahead and carry into the other areas. And how do you know that? Right? If you have a lechi, right? So now the lechi basically covers the area in the mavui. Now, what about between the lechis, right? Am I allowed to go ahead and carry between the lechis? So if you want to carry between the lechis, right, you need a lechi for that. All right, and the lechi for that, it's like when you go in those areas that has, mirror of the mirror, and there's two mirrors at the front and behind you, and there's a mirror and a mirror and a mirror and a mirror, right? So over here, same thing. The lechi matters the large area. If you want to carry within the lechis, you need another mini lechi, right, for that area, right? If you can see this picture over here, right? I don't know if you can catch it. So you see, there's like a little lechi next to the wall that comes out. So that wall that comes out is actually the lechi, and then you have a lechi to the lechi. So if you want to go ahead and carry between the lechis, you need its own lechi. So therefore we see, and this was quoted in the name of Rav, right? So we see that, so really between the lechis is usher unless it has its own lechi. So obviously between the lechis is usher. Maybe the reason over there that the lechi required another lechi is because it was 4 tefachim wide. Even within the walls by the lechi, right? Even though there is not an area of 4x4, the width of the walls is not 4 tefachim wide. Nevertheless, you still need its own lechi to go ahead and be able to carry there. The Rava, and what would Rava say over there? The reason why I can't carry there is Hasam de Pasuach lekarmelis. If on the other side of the mavui is a karmelis, in other words, you have a karmelis, and then you have a mavui, and then you have this area in between, right? So the reason why you need a lechi over there, the area in between, is because it attaches to a karmelis, right? But if attached to a shus rabim, it would be mutter. So now you have a mavui, the little pesach, and then a shus rabim, it would be okay. So Yetziva Ba'ara the Gira B'Shmei Shemaya, right? This is like it's like a quote saying like you're not making any sense, right? Yetziva Ba'ara means like the Yetziva is like the citizen, the Ezrachi, as Rashi says, Ezrachi, right? So the citizen basically is in the land, and the sojourner, the guy who doesn't belong there, is B'Shmei Shemaya is in the heavens. Basically, he's saying your logic is the opposite. In other words, what? If you tell me on the other side is the Rishus Harabim and inside is the Mavui, so it makes sense. You shouldn't be able to carry within the area of the walls, right? Now, within the width of the walls, within the width of the lechi. Why? Because we're worried they're going to go from the Mavui into the Rishus Harabim. So it's more of a reason to aser in between the Mavui, in between the lechis. But you're telling me that if the outside was the Carmelis and the inside was the Mafui, and then in between the lechis, only then it's aser. But if it was a shus rabin, the outside would be mutter. The logic seems opposite. So Gemara says, no, that is the logic why matzah mean as mina v'neir, right? Because two things can find its kind and veneer and wake up. In other words, since it's similar. Since a karmelis is similar to a mavui, a person might continue to carry through. So therefore, we will forbid carrying between the lechis. But since the Rishus Harabim is much different, right, than the mavui itself, so therefore we won't restrict carrying between the lechis, even if it doesn't have its own lechi. So that was a logic. We'll soon see the logic again. So Amar Le Rav Huna Berei Davishula Rava says Rav Huna Berei Davishula Rava. You don't hold that between the lechis is aser. Let's say you have a mavui with an entranceway that is lined with lechis. Here comes another picture, right? You have a series of boards, like 2x4s next to each other, okay? And space next to each other, that is acting as the lechi at the edge of the mavui. So now you have that along one of the walls, and so the area there, so pachas, so we said over there, so less than 4 tefachim. Now remember, we had the machlokas as to whether we say that two things connect, whether it's an airspace of 3 tefachim or 4 tefachim. So the machlokas between the 3 and 4, everyone agrees less than 3 is okay. Everyone agrees more than 4, it's not connected, it's not okay. So the machlokas is by 3.5. So let's say you have a space over here, which is 3.5 tefachim between all these boards. So you have a board here, 3.5 tefachim, another board, 3.5 tefachim, another board, right? So you have in between. Now, So you have a Mavash, Pachas Be'arba, Bon Lachlegis, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. But Rabbanan, it's not Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. And the Rabbanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel would say, love it. It's all considered to be one long board because it's like they're connected. And the Rabbanan would say, no, it's not connected. And therefore, right, you basically, you have many lechis, you don't have one. He says he holds you can only go ahead and carry up until the most inner, right? If you're standing in the mavui, the most inner board, that is the edge. So since they're all connected, so where does the lechi start? The lechi starts at the most inside board. So therefore, you can carry up until the inside side, right? The inside of the most inner board. Right, because it's all considered to be like one board. And according to the Rabbanan who says no, since the space in between is too far apart, therefore these boards are not connected. So therefore, the real lechi is the one on the outside. Therefore, you can carry up until the furthest, the inner part of the most further board. Right, because that is the only lechi. The others aren't lechis connected to it. Right, so therefore. Aval bein l'chaim the kuliyam also, but we see over here that you can carry up to that area. So it depends on how we view the lechi, whether it's the one board or all the combination of all the boards together. But it seems to be that everybody holds you can carry only up until the lechi, not the area where the lechi is. So what do you see over here? So how could you say over there you're allowed to carry between the lechis, right? If we see clearly, right, that you're not allowed to go ahead. So it's a kasha and rova. How could Rava say you can't carry? You can carry between the boards. So he said, no, simple. Rava Hasanami the pasuk l'karmelis. Since over there it's talking about a case where it's open to a karmelis, that's why they forbid you to carry between the lechis. But if it was open to Rosh Hashanah, it would be mutter. So Aval Rosh Hashanah, my shari, but if it was Rosh Hashanah, it would be mutter to carry between the lechis. Is that what you hold, Rabbi? Yitzivah bara the gira b'shmei. What do you mean? That's right. Your logic is opposite, right? It should be that since right Rosh Hashanah, we're scared of that, you should be forbidden to carry between the lechis. The Gemara says, no, that is the logic. Why? Matzamin as mina v'neir, because it could be that two things are similar. You'll wake it up. You'll continue. So therefore, we don't want you to carry. So therefore, into Rava, you can only carry between the lechis, right? If the mavui is basically up until a Rosh Hashanah, but if the mavui was up until a karmelis, then Rava would agree that one is not allowed to go ahead and carry between the lechis unless there is another lechi to those lechis. And Rav Ashi Omar, and Rav Ashi says. The case over there with all the lechis next to each other, they are less than 4 tvachim apart, right? But it is at least b'meshech arba amos, right? It is 4 amos long. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Darmin Lavud, according to Shimon Gamliel, who says Lavud. So what's this case? Havile Mavui. This long lechi, because all these boards connect, it's like its own mavui. And that's why you need its own. Lechi, not because a lechi needs a lechi, but because this lechi is more than 4 amos, right? More than 4 amos, which is approximately 24 tefachim. So then you need another lechi. However, the Rabbanan according to the Rabbanan who hold that you don't need, there is no lava there. So therefore, all you have is a single board, and obviously the single board is less than daled amos. But you don't need another lechi to go ahead and permit you to carry. Now, but according to Shimon Gamliel, if we say right that is all considered one. And then you need a lechi to it. Why isn't this considered to be a case of a board, right, which is nira mibachutz, which is seen on the outside because the board sticks out, v'shab b'fnim, and it can be and is basically lined up on the inside, right? So if you want to see a picture, so I guess there's pictures over here, right? If you look at actually the Gemara itself, I think all the Gemara should have it, right? The nira b'chutz, right? We're talking about a case of nira b'chutz. If you look at bays, right, by in the pictures next to the Gemara, right on the side, so it says you shows right the lechi, and it shows where the board is. So if you're standing right inside the area, right, so that's mi b'fnim, right. So if you're b'fnim, you don't see a board coming out, so that's called shava b'fnim. And if you're outside, and you're looking towards the other area and you see the board, whether it's from the sideways or directly to it, right? Then it's called nira b'chutz. That's b'chutz, and that's nira b'chutz. So if you can, so why isn't this a case of nira b'fnim? And nira b'chutz when it's seen on the outside, v'shaba b'fnim. And therefore, you shouldn't need a lechi to go ahead and carry because that it should be good. So Gemara says, no. Who holds that? Are we only discussing according to Rabbi Yochanan? Ha, ki also Rabbi no Rabbi Yochanan was quoting Rabbi Yochanan. Nira mibachutz v'shabafnim. If you have a lechi, right, that can be seen on the outside. In other words, if you're in the Shus Harabim, you can see the board is sticking out into the Shus Harabim. But but you don't see it if you're on the inside because it's flush against the outside wall. In other words, it goes around the corner, and therefore you don't see it. It's not considered to be a lechi, so therefore that's not a good lechi at all. So if that was the situation, it's not a good lechi at all because the lechi has to be seen from the inside. And now, speaking of that case, we're going to discuss it. So Itamar, nira b'befnim v'shava v'chutz. If you see the lechi from the inside, and you're on the outside, and you're the Rishis Rabbin, and you don't see it because the board is actually like within the walls of the Mavui, then nida mishum lechi. Then everyone agrees it's considered to be a lechi. In other words, the lechi has to be inside the Mavui and be able to be seen from the Mavui itself. Now, if you can see the board is basically on the outer edge of the walls of the Mavui, basically on the street side, and not in the Mavui, then Rabbi Chia, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Machlokes, Chadam Nida mishum lechi. One says it's considered because of a lechi. And the one says, no, it's not considered to be a lechi. So that was the machlokes between Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe. Now, Tistayim, the Rabbi Chia who d'amar nido mishum lechi. More logical to say Rabbi Chia is the one that said it is considered lechi. Why? The Tanya, because it says before Rabbi Chia says kaisel shetzido echad kaines mechavero bein shinir b'chutz v'sheba b'fnim bein shinir b'fnim v'sheba b'chutz nido mishum lechi. So he says over there, Rabbi Chia taught a case that if you have a wall, right, which was indented. Now the walls didn't come to a straight edge. So either one end sticks out one way, where it's seen from the inside and not the outside, or the other way, it's seen from the outside, not the inside. Then says over there, all these cases are considered to be a lechi. So therefore, we don't care, right, who is the one who says it's considered to be a lechi, even if you only see it from the outside and not the inside, right? So if you look over here, right, the art school shows you the two cases A and B. Right, I can't really see when I'm showing this, but we see when you don't have the two walls come together, right? So on one side, if you're on the inside, you can't see it, but on the outside you can see it. And the other one is if you're on the inside you can see it, but on the outside you can't see it because depending on how the walls come to meet, it doesn't make a perfect right angle. All right. So therefore, in such a case, even Rabbi Chia taught that it's considered to be a lechi. So Rabbi Chia mishmi aleha. So the Rabbi Chia, right? Did he not hear this, right? Maybe Rabbi Yochanan heard the same halacha, and he also heard that price, and he didn't hold it. So Rabbi Chia maybe Rabbi Chia also heard the same price, just like you said, Rabbi Chia heard this and argued. So maybe Rabbi Chia also heard this and argued. So Rabbi says, "Hi, I understand." It's okay for Rabbi Yochanan to disagree with this brisa, machlokes in the brisa, and not right because we have the machlokes in the other case. So therefore, it's okay for him not to agree with this limud. Why? And that because he didn't teach it. El Rabbi Chia, if Rabbi Chia heard it and didn't hold of it, so lama le misna. Why did he teach it? Obviously, since he taught it, he must hold it, right? He can't say he heard it, then he taught it, but he didn't hold of it. Obviously, right? Rabbi Chia did not agree, did agree with this, and therefore he holds that a lechi, whether it's visible on the inside or visible on the outside, is considered to be a good lechi. Fine. And Amar Rabbi Rav Huna, ni Reb b'chutz v'shab b'fnim nido mishum lechi. Speaking of the case before, when it's be able to see on the outside, but on the inside you can't really see it because it's around the corner, right? It's still considered to be a lechi. So Amar Rabba, according to this, says Rabba, why can't we ask from the Mishnah, which we referenced it yesterday, ask on it? What was the case? Now, we have this case over here yesterday. We have a small chutzner, which is into the big chutzner. Now, there used to be a wall between the two chutzneros. The wall fell down. So while you're standing in the small chutzner, you can't see any walls, right? It just opens up into the big chutzner, right? It opens up into the big chutzner, and you can't see any walls, and therefore it's usser. But if you're in the big chutzner, you can carry in it. Why? Because you see the walls a little bit towards the small chutzner because it's wider, right? The large chutzner is wider. So we say over there, right? So over there, we say from the smaller one, it's you can't go ahead and carry. So it's like an opening of the gedola. Now, now, if you hold that as long as is a lechi, even if the lechi is seeable from the outside, in other words, the case before we said, if the lechi is on the street side, right, as you can't see it if you're standing inside the movie, you have to go outside the movie and take a look and, see the post right in the, right around the corner, right? If that's okay. So, katana nami tishtri b'nira b'chuzah shabafnim. Say the same halacha, right? So these walls, right, the walls that come out, right, of the right, these walls over here that come out, let that be like a lechi that's on the outside of the wall. Why is that no good? Right? You should be able to carry inside the small chutzner because of basically the walls that come out. So why is it no good? Some Reb Zera, over here we're talking about b'nichnasin kaiseg katana legedola. Right? Actually, there's a picture in the art scroll, not in the art scroll, in the Rashi. If you look at the bottom corner of the Rashi, the corner picture, the picture that's furthest in the bottom right hand corner. It's if you look at the walls of the chutzner katana, they protrude into the chutzner gedola. So since they protrude in it, you can't just say, right, the walls that are on the side. Right, the walls on the side basically are used as the part of the chutzner katana, because since the walls that going out go further away from those walls, right, they protrude into the chutzner gedola. You can't say those back walls are part of the chutzner katana and to matir carrying the chutzner katana. The Gemara says, "I blame a love of the tishtri." Why don't you say it like this? Say lavud. Now the distance between. Now, if you look at the other picture, right to the left hand side, there's another picture. Basically, it's the same exact picture of the other one, but the two next to where the fence comes out and protrudes, right? There's two areas that stick out, right? Actually, you have also better pictures in the art scroll, right? So in the pictures in the art scroll, you see. Why don't you say over here "loved"? And when you say "loved," it's not just that it's all to one. It's like it's covered up. So if it's covered up, that means it's like a solid wall, right? We say the loved becomes a solid wall, and therefore, once again, like this solid wall, this loved is now your lechi, right? Why don't you say that you say loved, and now you have two lechis, one on each side. So maybe you can say like this. Oh, I have an idea. Maybe we're talking about a case of where when the walls protrude, right, and then it comes out to the other big walls, those large chutzner walls are much further away than 3 tefachim, and therefore there's no loved here because the only say loved is if the walls protrude, out, and it's within 3 tefachim of the other wall. Then you can say loved in that small little gap. But if it's wider than 3 tefachim, you can't say loved. So we're talking about a case of katana b'yeser gedola b'achad esrei. We're talking about how long was the opening that fell down? That was at most 10 amos, right? So therefore, because you can't have an opening for more than 10 amos, so it was at most 10 amos, and the larger chutzner was 11 amos. So if you have 11 amos, an amos is 6 tefachim, so each one has to be less than basically 3 tefachim, right? So therefore, you can say lavud on each side. So if that's Gamaravina, because of Zeb Shnayim, because of Zeb Rabba. Okay, fine. I have another thing. So maybe it was 4 and 2. So therefore, you can't say love it on both sides. Okay, okay, so say love it on one side, right? If you look at the picture in the art scroll, right, you see one side is 2 tefachim. So say that 2 tefachim space is basically love it over there, and that's your lechi. And if that's your lechi, you should be able to go ahead and carry in the small chutzner. Because who cares about the other side? Because all you need is one lechi. You don't need lechi on 2 sides. So it says, no, Rebbe must be thinking of Rebbe, the Omar, Be'inan Shtei Pasi, when you need 2 boards, 2 lechis, one on each side. The Tanya Chatzir, Niteres, the Pas Achad. Bryce says you have a Chatzir is matter with 1 board, and Rebbe Yomer B'Shnei Pasi, you need 2 boards. So therefore, we have to be talking about a case of where you have love it on each side, and therefore, since one side is 4 and the other side is 2, therefore you cannot say love it on both sides because it's more than 3, and therefore you end up with the smaller chutzner. One would not be allowed to go ahead and carry it. All right, shkoyach. We'll stop here. Everyone have a wonderful day.